Hello, everybody. Welcome to B2B Tonight. This is a huge event because this is our last show of 2020. With me, unfortunately, is Rishi Mathur. Rishi, say hi to everyone.
Hi, everyone.
What are you thinking, Rishi? What's going on? Why are you looking so astute right now?
It's tough, right? I'm torn because this is our last episode, and it's bittersweet because I'm sad we're leaving, but I'm also sad I don't have to see your face anymore.
Hey, it's just for a little while. We're gonna do one.
Wait, right? I got a question. What's up with the sweater?
This?
Yeah, that sweater.
I know. I'm dominating the camera with it, aren't I?
You look like the Michelin Man's cousin. What's up with it?
I mean, I personally think I look like a man of success who has sailed 7 seas and accomplished a lot in his life, helping startups gain millions.
You look like a guy who failed selling Italian tires. That's what you look like. It's terrible.
I think I look great. I think I'm channeling my Chris Evans Knives Out look a little bit. Like I look like a man that dominates the mainstream, and everyone has a poster of me up in their room.
Oh, Chris Evans, the very fit, very big Captain America type of guy, right? No, you look terrible.
Literally, my LinkedIn profile pic, I have a star-spangled suit with stars and the American flag. I am Captain America of sales. That's what I've been trying to do that for years. And the amount of time that I spend hanging out with Jim is probably the same amount of time that Chris Evans spends going to the gym.
No, I'm not buying it.
You don't think I'm pulling off the sweater right now?
I think you stretched it out a little bit.
This sweater was imported from Ireland from my wife, hand stitched by a farmer who literally shaved the wool off of a sheep and then did whatever you do with wool to turn it into a sweater.
But did that farmer know who would be wearing it?
Anyways, we've got a great show today. Jason Bay, every time that we get on calls with clients and prospects that we work with, it seems like more and more people are using him for training. He does a lot of really great stuff. And it's a big deal, actually.
Right. Are you just sad because you're wearing that sweater? Because I don't feel the love for this Jason Bay. I think Jason Bay needs a brighter future here. You know what it is, right? It's that sweater. It's bringing you down, man. You look like a toddler who's about to go serve some bowls of soup and spill all over himself. I've had dinner with you. You spill. It's a terrible sweater. You look like you're wearing one of those body defender suits that you wear to train dogs. And those dogs go, woo, woo, and they attack because there's all this padding. You look like that man with padding. You look.
You don't think I'm pulling this off at all?
I mean.
What's a good look for a sweater, Rishi?
I think a good look for you know what? I think a good look for a sweater is, but it makes you look suave, makes you look good. It makes you look like you waited tables at a restaurant. I wear some.
I don't know what to say. I think I look like a man of success. I can't believe it.
You should look in the mirror again and rethink that. But in the meantime, I think you have a thing here. Maybe I should wear a sweater. Maybe I should show you how it's done. 1 second. Let me show you how it's done. 1 second.
Nick, do I look bad with the sweater on? Is he right? All right. So today we have someone that I think is award-winning, right, Rishi?
More than award-winning.
Yeah, I don't know if he's actually won any awards, but he should get them. And if he hasn't, those contests are rigged. He definitely won one. Everyone say hi to Jason Bay.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
So for people that don't know, Jason does a ton of great training for people that Blissful Prospecting talked about by a ton of people. I always see your stuff on LinkedIn. What's the craze right now? What are you helping people with? What are some things you've been training?
I mean, one of the big things is it's really funny is just this year we've kind of started working with bigger companies, especially software companies and companies that sell professional services. And having not really worked in that world before, I worked for a company like that and done sales for them. It's kind of funny. They have the same exact problems that a startup with 50 employees has. And like anytime I talk to the sales leaders at these companies, I always ask them like one question, is there anything you feel like your team, like if they did this one thing better, that would be a game changer for you guys? And every single one of them says, we wish our team would pick up the phone more. Like we deal with a lot of call reluctance, like hands down across the board. And it's for all kinds of different reasons. And when you dig in with the reps, I mean, there's some people that are, the common fearful of rejection. There are some people that I think they've never really been in situations where they've had to ask for things and for people to say no to them. So it's across the board, I'd say call reluctance, man, is the number one thing, cold calling. How do we get our people to pick up the phone, feel confident over the phone, et cetera? That's the number one thing that people always complain about.
Do you think, oh, go ahead, Rishi. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go for it.
Oh, I was just going to, you can ask a question. I'll ask my question after.
All right. I will say, do you ever bang your head on your desk from all these trainings because of just like frustration of like, just pick up the call and do it?
Pick up the call? You mean pick up the phone? Say it again, Rishi.
Pick up the phone and do it.
Part of me is like that, where it's, we can just overthink something, so much that we kind of play mental gymnastics and just, kind of psych ourselves out. I used to do stand-up comedy. Don't ask me to tell a joke. Yeah, I'm rusty. Haven't done it in a while. And most of the stuff was not safe for work. It was really perverted material.
That's like Rishi's act, except Rishi does it at work, and I have to like bring him to HR like every week.
And then the HR goes, "Wait, that's your boss? Now you're good."
Yeah. So I think it's, with stand-up comedy, the big thing is, open mics. That's where you practice, right? It's a lot like selling actually, or prospecting at least, where a lot of the practice for cold calling is by just doing cold calling. You can role play and do all this other stuff that you want, but like the real way to practice it is in the moment and picking up the phone. And I don't know. It's really kind of hard to describe how scary getting up and doing an open mic is, especially the first couple of times when, like with comedy, if you're not funny, people don't laugh. Like there's no breaks. You know what I mean? Like you can give a presentation and you don't really know if people aren't really resonating with it. But if you tell a joke and no one laughs, it's kind of a humiliating experience. So, so I guess there is some frustration, but I would say a lot more empathy on my part. I mean, I do understand why people have call reluctance, and to their defense, I don't think that companies really train around that or talk about it. It's just kind of like, hey, Ryan, here's a list, dude, get after it, man. Hit your dials, bro. Good luck. And then let me know how it goes. So like no talk track, nothing, no training around the psychology behind it or how to, even manage your own mental state. Nothing like that.
One thing, so I haven't ever done stand up or open mic stuff. I'll go do presentations, but I actually will design jokes in my presentations ahead of time.
Yeah, you're very good, dude. I watched you at the Sales Success Summit when you're out here in Austin last year.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we didn't get to meet. I talked to a bunch of people on your team. That's how I kind of met a bunch of folks on your team. But yeah, I mean, your talk was like 40 tips in 15 minutes or something crazy like that. But it was quick.
Stuff in there. Yeah,
it was quick. It was funny. It was kind of all of those things. But I mean, you do a great job.
I really appreciate that. I've actually done my relatability with that is I've done public speaking for things before, marketing talks and stuff. I once got amazing experience. My wife and I got flown to Disney World to do a talk for a conference that was going out to people that work in marketing in the education space. I gave a very similar talk that I do in the sales world about how to make good first impressions when you're doing marketing. Yep. No one laughed at all. I bombed. And what happened was we were there for 4 days. It was a 4-day conference. I was one of the opening keynote people. And I went out and talked, and my wife was there, and she I would say a joke that normally would land well at a sales conference. No one laughed. And I'd hear her laugh in the back because it's the first time she's seen me do public speaking and stuff. I got off the stage, went back, grabbed her and said, let's just go to Disney. And we just bought park passes and ditched the conference.
Just got after it. Yeah.
It was just so terrible. No, I was so embarrassed that no one laughed at the stuff that I did. Cold calling in a lot of ways is kind of like that, right? Like I think one thing that can make cold calling more comfortable for people is having a plan before you actually get into the call. And you can say a lot of stuff and make a lot of content up ahead of time of what you want to do, almost like you have an account plan. So you have that whole talk track planned out, right?
Yeah. I mean, so where we're kind of going is let's kind of break down call reluctance a little bit and kind of what a framework might be. So I would think about, the content and the preparation, I think that's one part of it. I think the other part of it is, so I've spent quite a bit of time going to therapy actually, and a lot of couples therapy. And therapy is something I've always been interested in just because I hear so many people say good things about it, but it's also something that, being 31 years old, I'm kind of one of the older millennials where it was kind of like not kosher, right? It was kind of a weird thing to say that you go to therapy. My parents' generation, especially, right? That's not something that you openly talk about, but there's something that they talk about called deconditioning. And it's this 4-part, kind of concept. It's actually where pattern interruption came from. So when you hear about pattern interruption in sales a lot, people are like, yeah, interrupt the prospect's pattern, do all this other stuff. Well, pattern interruption is actually a process and framework that they use to help people overcome like addiction and like stuff like that. And it's essentially around like, how do we identify the pattern? If you look at like, kind of imagine like a quadrant, like in the upper left, you would have identify the pattern. Then you would have pinpoint the trigger. So what is the exact moment in time that you encounter this? And we can go through a couple of examples if you want. And then it's derail the pattern. And then it goes into practice and, make it a habit, right? Rinse and repeat. And you kind of go through this cycle. And that's a way that you can kind of like be more mindful about what you're thinking. So with call reluctance, if you're fearful of picking up the phone, what doesn't work for most people is the just do it anyways. Because then what gets... Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was just going to ask something, but go ahead. Sorry.
The just do it anyways, what that can reinforce in a really bad way is if I just do it anyways and I suck at it and I get rejected really hard, I'm like reinforcing that just do it means that it sucks more and more. It's like this weird vicious cycle that never gets better. And I'm reinforcing this like fear that I have. In the other end of it, you hear, oh, be positive. Tell yourself you're a badass. Like all this other positive mindset stuff that you hear that's like really popular right now is, kind of Gary V, kind of style.
They told me that in group therapy a lot.
Yeah, just be positive, Rishi. We know you don't have any friends, Rishi, but just tell yourself that you're cool.
Camera, eyes to the ground, Rishi. Go on.
So the be positive stuff, that does work for some people, but what I found in the trainings that I do is like for the majority of people don't really respond to that type of like, oh, just do affirmations, tell yourself you're a badass, be positive, have a positive mindset. What really works better is to just like acknowledge. So if we look at identify the pattern, I experience call reluctance, right? Pinpoint the trigger. I'm like literally get down to when I start to pick up the phone, what is the story that I tell myself? And when I ask people this, even at big companies that sell world-class products, they all say the same thing. They're like, I look at the prospect's LinkedIn profile and they have 20 years more experience than me. Like how could I ever say anything that this person would care about? Or, I looked at I do this a lot too. I'll look at a VP of sales profile and I'll be like, dude, Ryan looks like a super intimidating guy. Like he's probably going to be an asshole to me on the phone. And we tell ourselves all of these things, and that's kind of pinpointing the trigger, like really get to like, what is the thing that you tell yourself? And what I suggest working on, and this takes a lot of practice, is if you can just separate like the feeling, this is called diffusing. If you can separate the feeling from reality and say, those two are actually separate things, right? I feel this thing. So in other words, don't push down the feeling and say, oh, Jason, you're an idiot, you're being a wussy or whatever. It's like, no, I'm a little fearful, a little nervous to pick up the phone. I'm a little scared of getting rejected. That's okay. But let's kind of separate that from the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation, like what's the worst thing that'll happen if I call this person? Well, in today's day and age, it's probably going to go to voicemail, right? And if a person picks up and they're a little rude to you, which maybe happens less than 10% of the time, what will happen then? They're probably going to forget about you in literally a day. Like they're probably not even going to remember who you are. And you kind of like separate the feeling from the reality. Then you're kind of working on like derailing that. And I think you guys will appreciate one of the ways that I derail this, a technique you can use is like kind of labeling the, like that fear that comes in, that little voice that comes in. I give it the Borat label. So I will literally I have imposter syndrome just like anyone else does. And I tell myself, God, I can't believe this company would want to work with me. Like they could hire someone else in our space. Why would they want to work with me? And I just kind of go in Borat mode. It's like, when you look at call reluctance, for example, like I call it the call reluctance monster, So if it's like Borat, I'd be like, I am here to give you the call reluctance, like that kind of, I literally like talk to myself like in that voice and I picture Borat and it's like, and this is a technique they use in therapy, by the way, but it like kind of makes some light on the situation. And like, I'm making a bigger deal out of this than it actually is. And like, it makes me laugh a little bit and I have a little bit of fun. So that was kind of a long-winded explanation, I know. But that's how I kind of look at call reluctance, is it was within that framework.
Can you do the Boer voice for the rest of the interview?
I like it a lot.
It reminds nice. It reminds me of I was talking to, so one of my best friends is married to a professor at Stockton University. Her name's Katie Yang. Hi, Katie. If you're watching, I doubt you're watching. No one watches this. I'm so sad. Anyway, Katie, I'm just kidding. People watch it, but Katie actually,
insecurities come out.
Yeah, all my insecurities. Actually, will you guys be my therapist for this?
Yeah,
free of charge. So Katie actually was talking to me about this. She was saying that like she's a psychology professor, and one of the things she was talking about is like the same thing you're talking about with patterns. The way psychology works basically is your brain, it's kind of like walking up a mountain. Like if you're hiking up a mountain and you go off the trail, it's really hard to walk up the mountain or hike up the mountain. But if you stay on the trail where you're used to thinking a certain way and acting a certain way and staying in that pattern, it's way easier to get your thought process thinking that way. And it gets you in a spot where you end up getting stuck, and it's hard to break out of habits and feelings that you might have to branch out and do stuff. But if you go off the trail and you go off the trail more and more, it creates a new trail and gets you more comfortable in that mindset.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much to that. And I mean, I don't want to go down the therapy rabbit hole because it gets a lot deeper than that. But I think like if there was like 101 level psychology incorporated into all sales training, especially for how you understand yourself, I think it would make things so much more effective, because people would understand that like fear of rejection is a really natural thing, actually. Like this goes back to like tribe, kind of days where like getting rejected meant that you wouldn't survive. Like there's tens of thousands of years of that, evolution in us. So it's like just being able to recognize that it's a normal feeling. That makes people feel a lot better. Like when I do these Zoom trainings and there's, 100, 150 people in there, and I ask like who experiences call reluctance, what is the story you tell yourself, et cetera. It makes people feel really good when literally dozens of people are like, I'm so fearful of it. Like, I hate it. Like, this is what I'm thinking. It's like, it's a very normal thing to experience.
To be honest, actually like that we're talking about. Oh, go ahead, Rasheed. Sorry.
I was gonna say, people do a lot of stand-up comedy. The fear of rejection goes away because you get rejected so often and so quickly. Actually, I had a quick question though. I've heard in the past, and I think Ryan has also said this to me, which is like when you're leaving a voicemail, you always put your name at the end of it. And that way, when people usually read voicemails these days, if they hear your name or they see your name right away, they can click out. So therefore, if you leave your voicemail name at the end, it's better. Do you agree with that? Or would you have a better approach to leaving voicemails out of curiosity?
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I think it's really stupid to actually put your name and your company name at the top, because people can make a quick judgment like this. And it's not like a cold call where you have the ability to even talk to them. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of that. The other thing I'm a huge fan of with voicemail is using it as a way to point a prospect to another place.
Yes.
So
I love that you said that.
Yeah, I think the, so like when people like, that's another complaint that I hear. They're like, I don't leave voicemails because people don't call me back. Well, that doesn't mean that they're not working. You still send emails and people don't respond to all of your emails, but there's a reason why it takes, 5, 6, 7, 8 emails to get a response from people. All of the other stuff that you're sending is creating that awareness. And the example I always like to use, I mean, you guys are marketing people, right? I mean, for the longest time, the rule with marketing was the rule of 7. People have to see your stuff 7, 8, it's probably 10 plus times now in order to like really convert and like take action. Well, the most popular brands in the world, the Googles, the Nikes, et cetera, people have to see their ads multiple times to take action on it. So the company you're prospecting for is probably not a Nike, probably doesn't have that kind of brand awareness, so if they have to do it, you have to do it too, So I think it's the multiple touch, the voicemail, to your point, Rishi, like point that to something else. Say, hey, and I'm about to send you an email, and the subject line is, hey, Jason just left a voicemail. It's going to have a case study in it with how this company solved this problem, or here's a piece of content to solve this problem, whatever it may be. I'm going to point them to the email that I'm going to send them.
Is it weird if I say, hey, I'll be at your door in 5 minutes?
Yeah, that would be
that
would be a little creepy. And then what, you take a picture of yourself and throw it into the email in front of their house. You're like, yeah, what's up, dude? Yeah, that would be a little creepy. Just a little bit.
Just making sure.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about rejection. We talked about leaving voicemails. I think one thing I like talking about the psychology of this, actually. I think it's a good point. If you're listening to this and you're like, oh man, I'm trying to get my reps to call people more and stuff. I think the other thing that it can do is people approach the phone like we were doing sales 20 years ago. Because you have back 20 years ago, you had way less information about people online. You had their name, their company, their title. It's actually not really enough to go after someone anymore. Especially if you're selling to marketing where people are really active online and stuff, or sales or any of those tech spaces. The service space is also full of a lot of that too, especially with decision makers, because they're required to do stuff online. They're in press releases. They're in news stories about the companies. If you're selling to the enterprise and it's a real decision maker that's a little higher up, there's probably lots of information that you can find out about the person. I think it's a really important point you're bringing up, is like, it doesn't have to feel like a cold call anymore. You can kind of warm it up, right?
Absolutely. And dude, there's so much controversy on like, is it a cold call or is it not a cold call? Dude, can we use profanity on your show? Is that?
Of course.
Yeah, it is a fucking cold call. If you call someone and they're not expecting it, like that's a cold call. It doesn't matter how many emails you've sent them. It doesn't matter if they opted in to receive something, if they didn't sign up for a demo or to do an intro call with you. So it's a cold call. We can warm up our cold calls. And this is actually a really big topic. I think that like when we look at call reluctance, we talked about the psychology behind it. I think in knowing what to say, like having a framework for how you do a cold call is one thing. And then the other kind of third of that bucket is like having something to say that the person would actually care about. So outside of your talk track and your value props and like all that other stuff, how do you find something that people actually care about? And one of the things that I think we do too much of is we focus too much on problems when we're prospecting. And I think it depends on what you sell, but most of us are not selling something that's fixing a hair on fire problem that a lot of people have. And when you're not selling something that's fixing a hair on fire problem that everyone knows that they have, really maybe 2 or 3% of the people you're reaching out to are even experiencing the problem that you can help with. So you're going to miss like 97% of the time. And when you think about it, I mean, think about all the big purchases that you guys have made just at LeadIQ in terms of software vendors, et cetera. Did a huge pain point internally prompt you to take the meeting with the person? I mean, maybe some of the time, but I think some of the other time it might've been like, this person seems like they really know what they're doing. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, we have a new accountant now after COVID, because our previous accountant, I never thought we would work with someone else. They didn't really give us any information on what we should be doing with PPP or COVID. They had nothing to share with us. And then Bench.co was putting out all this content, these webinars, all this other stuff. We hopped on a webinar and then hopped on a sales call with them afterwards. Done deal, like that. And it had nothing to do with how easy they were to work with or a pain point that we had. We didn't really have any pain. We were exposed to a better way of doing things.
By the way, people, I just want to interrupt people watching this. Hi. Like, we're trying to, I'm just kidding. I was just about to say the same thing. But anyway, Bench.co. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm a jerk. I shouldn't have done that. That joke missed.
No, it's all good.
She's judging me. Don't judge me, Rishi. Go ahead. Talk into the undercover microphone there, Rishi.
There's no microphone here. It's just flowers.
All right, go ahead, Jason. Sorry.
Like, one of the things that I've been really thinking about is, we can have an email or a cold call, a message where we talk about problems, but I think what is actually more important is finding some sort of commonalities in what that prospect values and what you value. And what I mean by that is there's like 3 areas that you can look for to figure out what a company or a person really values. One of them is their accomplishments. So what do they brag about? Right? What do they openly brag about? Awards they've won, clients that they've landed, portfolio case studies, et cetera. The other one is, like thinking about like what they create in terms of content, like what do they educate their audience about? That's another really big one. And then lastly, what do they spend money on? Are they hiring? What kind of tools are they using, et cetera? That'll actually give you a pretty good picture of like what a company values or what a person values. And then you can connect what you value with that. So for example, I'll give you a quick example. I'm working with a company that sells essentially outsourced customer support. So when a consumer-based brand, especially around the holidays, needs to level up their customer support because there's a lot of intake and volume, it's really like a hard process to do that internally because they have to like hire more people or do chat bots or whatever, right? So this company essentially will come in and say, hey, we can like offset and handle some of that, overload. What they look for is a commonality in like, does this company care about providing really good customer service? So when they go on the website, what they're looking for is like, what do they brag about? Okay, they brag about how awesome their product is and there's video testimonies, et cetera. And then what's missing on the site? Oh, they don't have 24/7 customer support. You know what? If they care a lot about serving their customers well and getting back to them quickly, and they don't have 24/7 support, that's where we can come in and help them provide 24/7 coverage to keep doing the awesome work that they're doing. That works so much better than saying, hey, you have a problem, you're not providing 24/7 support, and here's what's happening right now because of that. If it was just that and it wasn't hooked into like what this company cares about it, I just find that people they're less inclined to take a meeting because they're like, we're already taking care of this.
So one thing that I think is actually a good theme here too is a lot of the time the people that are watching this are cold calling people that are already using a competitor, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if they're already cold calling a competitor or have a scenario like that, what you're selling, they probably have that box checked off already of a need. What do you do in that scenario?
Yeah. So, I mean, we can talk about essentially how to objection handle, when someone says, hey, I'm already actually using a solution. So one thing I suggest doing if you're selling software that's a pretty cool little hack is go on to software review sites like g2.com, and you can look and see what people really, really like about your competitor solutions and what they really don't like. So look at like the 4 and 5 star reviews and then look at the 2 and 1 star reviews. And then what you can say is something like this. Yeah, hey, Ryan, actually, I did some research. I was actually kind of aware that you were already using a solution. So I totally understand if, now might not be the best time to talk about using another solution. But while I have you, I'm curious, just because I've done some research on solution A, what I find is that a lot of the people that use that product really like this, and they don't really like some of this other stuff. What has your experience been?
Wow, that's really good. I kind of want to do a role play a little bit actually of this.
Sure.
You want to try it a little bit? Rishi, you want to do this?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm in.
So in this scenario, let's have Jason. Rishi, do you want to be the guy on the phone?
Sure.
All right. Here's what we're going to do for a situation. Jason's selling LeadIQ. Rishi, you're someone that uses a competitor. Make a fake competitor up or something. And let's see how Jason handles the objection. Is that cool with everyone? Are you going to put the phone up to your ear and get in character?
Yep. Hello. I've been on the call for like 3 minutes.
Hey, Rishi, this is Jason with LeadIQ. Hey, I know I probably caught you in the middle of something, but do you have a minute? I can tell you why I'm calling and you can let me know if you want to keep chatting.
LeadIQ. Oh, yeah. You guys are competitors to Blimpo. That's what I'm going with.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the reason I was calling is I was actually doing a little bit of research. I noticed obviously you're VP of sales at ABC Company, and it looked like you guys were doing a bunch of hiring on your BDR and SDR team right now. And one of the things that we typically find with BDRs and SDRs is they spend a lot of time, in Salesforce, using the tools, bouncing around, that sort of thing. And one of the ways that we're working with sales teams like yours is helping them kind of, reduce the clutter in the workflow so that they can do what you want them to do more, right? More phone calls, more emails, et cetera. But I know I'm catching you in the middle of your day here. Do you have like a minute? I could ask you like maybe 2 or 3 questions to see if this would be relevant for you.
I don't know. See, here's the thing. Can you 10x my revenue as these other companies have told me?
That's a really great question. I don't know what your revenue is. It'd be really hard for me to say that I could 10x your revenue. So that wouldn't be something I'd feel comfortable promising, but I'm really curious, like what kind of tools are you guys using right now for your data?
Yeah, we're using a bunch of tools. Let's just say I named some tools. Let's move on.
Damn it, Rishi, you ruined the role play. Just say, Rishi, let's say, yeah, we actually use BloomInfo. We've been using them for about 5 months. We're in an annual contract with them.
Okay. Yeah. Right. So we're using Blimpo, and we've been in an annual contract with them for a while. So that's basically the data providers we're using. No,
got it. Man, it sounds like you guys are taken care of, and LeadIQ being I'm calling to kind of talk about the workflow and that sort of thing. And sounds like this is something that you sort of have some tools and stuff in place for. But I'm really curious because I'm very aware of that solution. By the way, a lot of our customers actually use that solution and ours, and I'm curious what your thoughts are, if you don't mind me asking. What I hear is a lot of people with Zoom info tend to like, the quality of the data tends to be pretty good. But one of the things that I hear that people sometimes hate is how it doesn't really integrate with their reps workflow. And it takes a bunch of time for them to actually get the emails and phone numbers when they'd rather would just be able to get that on the spot and use it right away versus waiting a day or two to get it from their marketing team. What has your experience been? Are you hearing anything like that from your sales team?
Yeah, all the time. I don't know what Zoom info is, but at Bloom Blimpo, we have that problem. It's like terrible.
Yeah, definitely. Well, hey, I'm glad I called then. Do you want me to keep going or?
Oh, yeah, no, great. By the way, do you have a shiny head? I only deal with people with shiny heads.
The hell, Rishi. So Jason,
was that discrimination?
No, I like the way you handle that, Jason. If you're a rep and you're using something that's like really commoditized, where you might not necessarily need more than one thing. The other thing is sales processes can take a couple months, right? Like not everybody closes something in like a month. It takes a little while, right?
Yeah.
So
no, absolutely.
I don't think it's a bad idea. Another thing that we suggest is if you get on the call with someone and they're in a contract with someone else, make content with them. Like ask them if they want to make some content or do something on social. Cause like they probably have a lot of cool wisdom, and a lot of the people that you're probably also prospecting, they probably know. Like there's a ton of overlap in the space on those things. What if you're in the service space? So like you were talking, you've been doing some training with companies that are in the service space as opposed to a product. How do you do you typically find the clients that you're training? Are they already using other service providers when these people, like let's say it's an agency or an SEO firm or something? Are they already using someone, or are they typically going in as the new person, the incumbent?
Yeah, I mean, if it's an agency or something, that almost everyone is either doing it internally or they already have an agency. So with most professional services, it's CPAs, like stuff like people are already going to have someone in place doing that.
Yeah. So how do you deal with that? Let's go through the scenario of that. Like, is it basically, I'll give you an example of something I like doing. Actually, I can do a role. Want me to do a role play, Rishi?
Yeah, do it, please.
Okay. Ready? I'm going to do the role play, and Jason, you yell at me and coach me and make me better.
Yeah.
Are you ready? Ring, ring. Rishi, you're the guy.
Oh, hello.
Oh, hi, Rishi. This is Ryan O'Hare from LeadIQ. How's it going? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not from LeadIQ. I need to be from an agency.
Oh, you're from Creation Agency. Wow.
All right. Yeah, well, we could say that. Hi, I'm Ryan from Acme. We're a service agency. Do you have a couple seconds to talk?
I don't know. I'm kind of in a rush right now. What's this about?
Yeah, I know you're in a hurry. Honestly, I was looking at some information and reading some stuff about some of the job postings you guys have online. I noticed you have like 3 hires going out there for SEO stuff. We actually might be able to help you with getting your SEO stuff indexed faster and increase your organic traffic. What would happen if your traffic increased?
I would probably get more sales, more inbound leads. That'd be great.
How are you guys using anything right now? Do you have anyone working on SEO? Or are you outsourcing, or what are you doing right now?
We're using SEO Incorporated.
SEO Incorporated. Oh, cool. I actually haven't heard of them before. How do you guys like them?
Yeah, they are the best.
So kind of a weird question for you. I know we're talking on the phone. And you only have a couple seconds. If I were in a vest and I was painted blue, and you had a magic lamp and I came out of it and said you could change 3 things about SEO right now, what would you do? What would you change?
Yeah, I would want more footprint on the internet, especially on Google when people search us up, or any keywords I wanted to show up. The second thing I would like as far as my SEO goes is to have more drive towards my website. I guess that goes into just more footprint outside there. I want more people to know about us and be aware about us.
So is SEO Inc. not doing that? Like, is that why you have to use one of your wishes on that? Or do you feel like you're, because you only get 3 wishes, right? I mean, in this scenario.
Yeah. I mean, they're doing an okay job.
I know you're really busy. Maybe if you don't mind, we could scheme through some SEO strategies and stuff with you sometime and compare it to see how it's going with what you're doing with SEO Inc. Would you be free next week? Maybe.
Maybe. Question. A lot of people keep saying the same thing. How do I know you guys are actually going to come through? Yeah.
So there are a lot of people that work with all these different SEO firms. You probably hear all these different promises and stuff. They're going to change your life and all that. We have a customer that's very similar. Reminds me. Do you guys know Doobly Doop Inc.? They're kind of similar to you guys, right?
Oh, dude, they are our competitors. How dare you, sir?
I know. The cool part though is we did a lot of stuff to help them rank in areas that you're not ranking in right now, and I think there's a huge opportunity there. We could talk about it more next week. Maybe I can give you more of a formal rundown of everything. Would that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds great. But by the way, did you create the jingle for Biblidoop? Because that's stuck in my head, and that's what really got them.
I wish I did, but I can tell you we made them come up on like 10 first page search results on Google, which had a huge impact on revenue for them. They increased their meetings by like 20%. It was crazy. Anyway, I can tell you the story more next week. How's Thursday at 3?
Yeah, sounds good. Let's do it.
All right, Jason, break that down. Give me some crap.
No, I like, I mean, you've been doing this for a while, man. So love the tone, love the speed, love how you introduced yourself, all that good stuff. The only thing I have is like, I'm wondering if there's maybe a different angle that you could take around, like, what I'm wondering is like, why are they hiring people right now?
Yeah.
You know, if they're hiring people right now and they already have an agency, like what are they looking to get from that? The other thing is like, I'm wondering how that we don't know what the person's role was in this case, but I'm also wondering like, how is this connected to something that's bigger than the hiring?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, if they're selling a product, this is where you can kind of start talking about like, oh, hey, and by the way, I noticed that you just, launched some new products. I'm guessing part of this plan has to do with getting them to rank better. Yeah. Well, I don't know if you noticed when I Googled some, product categories like this, I noticed that you're being outranked by your competitors. Is that something that you're getting help with from your current agency on? Like that might've been like where we go, but that's really hard to do. That's really hard to do in a role play though, when we don't have that context, but that's what I would be looking for is, and the marketing stuff I think is the easiest of all the professional services because you can see everything.
It's tied to revenue directly. I was picking something that's really common because I get pitched SEO stuff like every day. You know what I mean?
But if you can find something that they are doing and then connect that back to those values that we talked about, how is it connected to what they brag about? How is it connected to what they educate their people about? And then how is it connected to what they're spending money on? Typically, you can find a connection. If they're selling services or products, like what are the bigger things going on in the company? And this person's role with SEO is to help drive traffic to those things. And then you can draw on, well, here's what's going on that I noticed could use some improvement. You can make the conversation about something bigger related to their job outside of the hiring or the day-to-day kind of things that the agency is doing for them.
I got a question about sticking to the script. How do you help these reps who are going on these calls, like jump outside and be more natural on the call and not stick to a script that they're given? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, cause a lot of like reps, even when I was at EX, we just stuck to the script, and going outside of it sometimes made us freak out a little bit. So how do you train these reps into understanding like, this is how you can go out the script and this is how you could deviate without like having your brain freak out?
Yeah, I call it thinking outside the script. So when I look at the cold call, there's like 3 kind of components to it. I look at, intro, hook, close. So if you kind of look at it as a timeline like that, that's the framework. So with the intro, you're doing exactly what Ryan did there or what I did. You're just trying to buy time, right? So I want to remove the surprise. I want to introduce myself, my name and my company, and then I want to do some sort of permission-based opener. There's all like different flavors of permission-based openers, but I want some sort of permission-based element, or I don't just start blabbing as soon as they pick up the phone and talking about my stuff. The next thing that I want to do is like really give them, once they give me some permission, this is where our reply method comes in, but this is kind of your value prop that you want to share, right? I'm usually going to lead with what I found, personalization, can have some sort of empathy. So here's what I think people like you are focused on, or here's what it seems like you value, or here's a problem that I noticed. And then I want to go into relevant results. Here's how we're helping companies like yours with that. And then I do another pause there. Is it cool if I ask you 2 or 3 questions to see if this might be relevant for you? And then I go into that middle part of the call, the hook, that's the question stack. And this is where the call is more freeform. So I want to have 2 or 3 questions prepared in advance, or something like what Ryan did there, where I kind of want to come in with a couple of easy, questions. Like if I'm LeadIQ, I want to ask them what kind of tool they're using, right? That's a really simple answer. I want to ask them maybe, hey, I noticed it looks like you have about a couple dozen SDRs. Like, are your SDRs doing their own prospecting, or are your AEs doing their own prospecting? Are the SDRs filling for, et cetera? I'm going to ask some couple easy questions. Then I'm going to ask some more, problem oriented questions, or question stack, I call it. Or I'm going to give some context into those questions and then ask the question and really get a conversation started. So to kind of get back to what you said, Rishi, I think you should have a really good framework and structure for how you want to approach the call that allows you to deviate outside of that and then get back, no different than a sales call. You can go all over the place, but you can always come back to that trail, right? As you're progressing up the mountain, you can go If you're thirsty, you can go to the stream off to the side, get some water or whatever you need to do, but then you get back to the main trail. So I would have that structure in place.
Hey, Jason, let me ask you something. Let's pretend that on the call I did with Rishi, I had said the magic lamp question, and he actually said, "Look, I don't have time for this right now." Do you just bail out, or what do you try to do there?
So I have another framework for objection handling too. It's called EVO. So the framework is empathize, validate, and then offer. So the mistake that most people make when they're objection handling is they go straight to the offer. Oh, you don't have time right now? Well, hey, perfect. Well, all I need is 30 seconds. We can get you some time on your calendar. Or, hey, perfect. How about I send you a calendar invite? We can meet 5 minutes tomorrow at a time that works for you, right? Those are the canned rebuttals that reps are taught. And then what happens? Most of those people don't show up to the meeting. Yeah. So the empathize and validate piece is let's acknowledge the person real quick. So if someone's like, hey, I got to take off, it's like, hey, totally understandable. I'm cold calling you out of the blue here. So I totally get you probably had something better going on when I called you. But hey, would it hurt? Would it be a bad idea to go for a no-oriented, kind of Chris Voss style question? Hey, would it be a bad idea, if I took a minute here and just asked you 1 or 2 questions, and then you could see if this is even relevant for you and if you even want to talk again? Does that sound fair? Cool. And then you can go into your questions. And if they give you resistance again there, you probably just let it go.
The would it be a bad idea is really cool.
Yeah.
I didn't do it that much because I was in the hot box for the role play, but I also think that when you're using your voice over phone, don't be afraid to have a little bit more personality too on the stuff. I was just trying to think about what I was going to say because I didn't know I was going to be doing this. If you're prepping for a call and you have a couple of things you think you have in common with the prospect, you can also bring those things up. I've tried to make a joke about being painted blue and being a genie, but I probably would have said that a little differently if I wasn't in the situation that I was in too. So I think it's okay to do that. The other thing that I like to tell people is if they're like, look, just send me more info over email, and you're like, what kind of info would be useful? And they don't actually answer you on that, hype up the touch you're going to be doing. So be like, instead of being like, all right, I'll send you more info, be like, I'm going to send you an email. It's going to be the greatest email you've ever seen. And then you hype it up. And when you actually write the email, make it really creative and fun and cool. The thing is, the people that are decision makers at these companies, they're extraordinary people. That's how they got in that position. And they deserve extraordinary outreach if you're going to be following up with them afterward.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. I think just having a little bit of personality, like you said, can go a long way to kind of just break the pattern, that we've been talking about towards dude, you're really just trying to have a conversation. And if you go in, this kind of ties back to call reluctance too. Don't go into the cold call wanting a meeting with that person. You don't even know if they would be worth your time to meet with either. Go in with the intention of starting a conversation and lead with some curiosity. It's the tone should sound a lot like, hey, I was doing this research and I found these things, and I'm wondering if you're running across this thing that a lot of people like you are running across right now. That's kind of the tone that you're looking for, and you don't need anything from the person.
It's almost like you're a journalist, trying to investigate something a little bit, or a detective or something, right?
Yep.
Jason, how long do you take time spending researching every prospect you're going after?
Yeah, that question requires a lot of context. I think if you're selling enterprise stuff, a good rule of thumb that you might use if you're selling into enterprise is the time that I take to research an account and find the half a dozen people I'm going to reach out to and write the message. That might take an hour to do for each account if you're selling enterprise deals. If something's a little bit more transactional, like your $10,000 to $20,000 range, that kind of thing, it might not make sense to spend more than 5 minutes researching someone and firing off your email or researching the account in that amount of time too. And it's and then there's everywhere in between. So it kind of depends on what you're selling. And the thing that I would identify first is I would do an activity where you look at what's my revenue goal for the month and then do the math backwards. How many demos does that need to be? How many opportunities does that create? How many intro calls? How many prospects do I need to reach out to with my conversion rate, and kind of get that number per month so that you can break it down per week and then break it down per day. And that'll help you kind of schedule, time block your time on a calendar. And I find that most people haven't done that exercise. They have no idea how much activity is needed for them to actually hit the revenue target.
We've been kind of talking about this internally with some of the sales teams that we've been closing. If you're selling into the enterprise, I think the other thing you need to do is have an account plan. You're going to be doing account-based prospecting. Make a plan for what you're going to say for each role at the company. And that arms you with better information that you can say so you feel prepared, right?
Yep. No, absolutely. And if you're reaching out to a lot of these same people, I mean, the framework's going to be very similar. You just need to kind of customize it a little bit for that company. Like that's where the at scale, the personalization at scale, that's where the scale part comes from. It's from the repeatability. It's not from the automation of the personalization. You guys do a wonderful job of this at LeadIQ though. It's like you guys are doing the exact thing that we're talking about.
Oh, cool. Thank you. I'm sure that me and Rishi probably aren't doing it enough though. We need to get our teeth a little bit more synced into prospecting and stuff. Rishi and I are talking about doing something where we're going to have him be a prospector for a couple weeks and watch what he does.
We've been talking about this for 7 years.
We've been talking about it. We were going to do it in June and then it got postponed because we had a big product launch thing that we had to do. But we'll do it at some point. Jason, we talked about like an account plan. How do you coach people on that? How do you make a good account plan? Like, what's that look like?
Yeah, account planning is this is something with the companies I work at. It's like every company seems to kind of do it differently. So like what I would think about is a couple things. I like to retrace steps that you've done in the past. So no different than deal reviews that people do. Like you can do a prospecting review too. So look at like all your big accounts you've landed in the last 6 months and like reverse engineer. Who did I talk to? What was their role? Who was the first person I met with? Who was my champion, et cetera? So like what I would look at is like once you have the company nailed down that you want to reach out to on a persona level, I would keep it really simple and look at 3 areas. Who are the typical champions in this? Who are the decision makers and the people we need to get sign off from, and who influences the decision? And the influencer is typically the one I see being ignored. So like for me, if I'm selling prospecting training, people that might influence that decision are like people in marketing roles. They might not be managing the BDRs that I'm going to be helping, but they care a lot about the leads being generated at that company, right? And that becomes a lead source for them. So really thinking about those 3 things. And then I try to keep it really simple. Pick 1 or 2 people in each of those categories, depending on how big your company is. And then from there, you should already have like messaging that you would normally use for each of those roles. And then there's a lot of different ways that you can go about it. But one that I'm a really big fan of is like each week you focus on specific types of personas. So maybe it's your sales persona 1 week and then you get all the messaging and stuff and your sequences started. Week 2, you work on your marketing personas, get the sequences ready, get it started. And then now you can like really kind of focus your time and energy and get into a little bit of a rhythm. But I try not to complicate it much more than that. But I'm only touching the prospecting side of things. So I'm not talking account planning on the sales end or anything like that.
Yep. So how do you create movement with the influencer out of curiosity?
How do we create movement with the influencer? So what's in it for them is what I'm thinking.
Do you
what is in it for this?
Do you say that in the value prop? Do you actually drive action? So like an influencer, for example, let's say at LeadIQ, the people that usually purchase are VPs of sales, maybe someone in sales operations, but we can get influence from like an SDR or an SDR manager or an account executive that tries us on self-sign up and loves it or something. How do you take that and create movement? I hopefully everyone catches up that we're getting free consulting from Jason. Thanks, by the way. But like if you're, it could be a different industry too if you don't want to use us. But like, how do you actually take that individual person that has a lot of influence and can help you? Like, how do you take that and drive it toward action?
Yeah, good question. So this happens a lot with us actually, because with a lot of, reps follow our content and then they comment on stuff and I see that and I'm like, oh, that's a company I want to work with. So I actually just pick up the phone and call those people. And what I do, like when I call a BDR, is I want to figure out a little bit more about what the ground level challenges are with prospecting. So if it's LeadIQ or software, it's like, hey, the people using this, like, what do they like, don't like what solution are they using, et cetera. And then I can have like a really informal call with them for 5 or 10 minutes. And then I don't ask them, I think this is a key. I don't want them to introduce me to their boss, because most of the time when that happens, they explain what I do in a really poor way. They say, hey, I talked to this guy, Jason, he does prospecting training. You should talk to him. And then the person's boss is thinking, we already do prospecting. Like we're good. Everyone's making calls. Now that's very different than if I reached out to, you, Ryan, because I talked to Rishi and I'm like, hey, I talked to Rishi. And one thing that he mentioned is that you guys are really focused on personalization at scale right now, but it takes a really, really long time for you to research accounts and execute that. And one thing that he's worried about is he's not going to hit his numbers because it's taking so long for him to make the calls and send the emails. I had some ideas I wanted to share with you on how other SaaS companies we're working with are doing personalization at scale in a way that, is really efficient so they can hit their numbers. Open to having a chat like that right there. If I can show that VP that I've done that research, I've talked to several people about this on podcasts, but like when I meet with a VP of sales, dude, they don't want to spend time doing a lot of discovery with me, man. Like they're kind of expecting me to come in and kind of know the landscape of how things work at their company. Like I'm not going to ask them questions like, so you guys cold calling right now? Yeah. How do you guys do your intros? What are you saying? Like, where are you guys getting hung up? They're like, I don't know. I know that we're not hitting our revenue targets right now, but I'm kind of expecting you to come in and knowing what we're having challenges with and how that fits in. So that's the approach that I recommend, this kind of bottoms up approach. Use them as a way to get what I call insider info, and ask if you can mention their name when you reach out to the person above them.
If they say no, you can still anonymize it, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've talked to a few reps on your team, and like, here's the kind of the consensus of what I'm hearing.
I'm smiling because I just keep thinking of like journalists saying like, according to several sources. You like have a notebook, you're like reading it. That's really good. No, that's really smart actually. Rishi, we're kind of getting near the sunset of this conversation. It's making me sad.
Oh, no. Jason, why are you leaving us?
Jason,
Stay.
what is this? You should resign at your company and just come hang on the Zoom with us forever.
And to be honest, you are the company, so just let it go. Come here, hang out with us.
It's a good point.
Well, I don't really like Nick that much. That's why I need to take off.
That's why he's not here. Nick, get off this.
Yeah, Nick, for people watching, Nick is our editor that is like quietly lurking in the background here. He's been just saying really creepy things into our ears while we're recording this. Like, Nick, it's really uncomfortable. Can you stop that, please?
Yeah.
Jason, do you want to plug anything? We're kind of getting near the end here. What's cooking for you guys this upcoming 2021 as we wrap up the end of the year?
Sure. Well, most of what we're working on, you can find at our website at blissfulprospecting.com. But like typically where people get hung up is with messaging. And like the number one challenge that I hear is like, it takes forever to write an email because people do it from scratch. Like every time they write it, even companies that are using Outreach or SalesLoft or insert whatever other sales engagement platform, oftentimes there isn't like streamlined templates, for them that they really like working with. So there's a guide on our website called the reply method that I'd check out. It's ungated, and it's essentially got that structure for how to approach like a good sound message that is, really prospect oriented versus me oriented, so something you can use in your emails, your cold calls, et cetera. So I'd check that out at blissfulprospecting.com. That's a big thing. And then hopefully what we're going to be doing this next year is I'm starting a project. I'm not quite sure what it's going to be called yet, but it's going to be essentially like a greatest hits book from like all of the best like prospecting advice out there, combined with our frameworks, combined with some psychology and that sort of stuff. So I want to start that project next year. But yeah, check out our website and get signed up for our stuff. We got a ton of free content on there.
So Jason Bay, go look for him on LinkedIn. Thank you everyone else for coming on except Rishi. Jason, thank you. You've been great. If you are feeling discouraged or sad about doing cold calling, or you feel like you don't have it, talk to us. Well, we can jam around some ideas with you. The whole idea here is just, I think a good rule of thumb that Jason kind of talked about too, is just think about what you would want to do if you were getting cold called. Like that's a really easy way to kind of feel a little bit more confident. Like what I want to hear. If you call someone and you're flattering them and talking about stuff that's about them and showing that you really care about them, no matter what, they're gonna be huge jerks if they're a jerk to you, if you do that still. So like, don't even sweat it. It's fine. I think the stuff you gave today, Jason, was awesome. Thank you for participating, being the hot box. Everyone else, thanks for listening. Godspeed.
The hot seat. Thank you.
Get out of here, Rishi.